What's up, everybody? Bill Tendo here, and today we're going to have a quick talk on forgotten sci-fi. About what? About one of the greatest shows you've never even heard of. Motherfudging Harsh Realm. So, this video is not going to be super popular because nobody's searching for it. However, if you haven't clicked the like and subscribe yet, please do so. But down below in the description, I will put the link where you can watch this show. It only had 11 episodes, and all of them are available here on YouTube. So let's get into the history of Harsh Realm. Overall, so we remember the 90s, the late 90s on Fox. Fox at Friday at 9 p.m. If there was a documentary made about Chris Carter or an autobiography, that's what it would be called. Fridays at 9, because he did the X-Files and he did Millennium, and it was fantastic. So he has this deal with Fox, right? So we all love Chris Carter. We love those shows. They're great shows. And the deal was basically any show he brings to them, if they're interested in making it, they will. And he was firing on all cylinders at the time, so it was kind of a no-brainer. One of his producers had brought him a comic book called Harsh Realm by Harris Comics and told him, this would make a fantastic TV show. Well, the basic premise of the comic book was a guy goes into a VR world. Now, VR was just entering the zeitgeist of America at the time. We were just starting to really imagine what it would look like. Like I said, this is late 90s, maybe very early 2000s. We're just starting to think, what could VR look like? Well, the premise of the comic book is that there is basically a VR version of Dick Tracy, like a detective, just old school gumshoe going around solving crimes in the Harsh Realm via VR, which was an exact copy of our world. Well, Chris Carter didn't like that because he already had Millennium. He had X-Files, which was kind of sci-fi, and then he had Millennium, which was kind of horror, but also detective, because a week show where the guy would get a case and go work it. So he was a detective. But the concept of the VR intrigued him. So what he basically did was he reworked it. He took the title and a couple small elements from the original comic book, and he came up with the idea of a military simulator gone awry. And so he publishes this. He brings it to Fox, and Fox is like, we love it. So they start airing episodes, and I know exactly what you're thinking. So why haven't we heard of this show? Well, there was a number of problems outside of the storytelling that really led to its demise. Number one, Fox never promoted the show. And so it just didn't get any traction. Number two, it was hit with an immediate lawsuit after the first episode, because in the first episode, it says created by Chris Carter. Well, the guys that created the comic book sued immediately. So as of the second episode, it says television show created by Chris Carter based on the concept of the Harsh Realm comic book by, and these two guys' name. And then the biggest thing to go completely wrong for Harsh Realm was actually the Matrix movie. The original Matrix movie, not the trilogy, the first one. So what had happened was, and I always want to say that, I love saying that. So what had happened was, basically, Harsh Realm was a comic book for years. The Wachowski brothers read Harsh Realm comic and drew significant ideas from that. Actually, the guys that wrote the comic ended up making an undisclosed deal with the Wachowskis after the Matrix, because they took a couple of the ideas from the comic. So they were both inspired by the same source, the Harsh Realm comic. And then the TV show, they started writing scripts, they started filming, and it took about 2.5 years for it to go from the comic book to a full-fledged TV show. And 1 month before Harsh Realm, which had began production before The Matrix, 1 month before The Matrix was released in theaters. So basically, with Harsh Realm coming out and it having a similar concept of someone living in a VR world, but knowing that they're not part of that VR world, they had similar themes and concepts. It kind of made it look like Harsh Realm was a television show that was hastily put together to try to capitalize on the success of The Matrix, which is absolutely not true. There's a couple other little things that made it not as successful as it could have been. I'm not going to talk about the main guy on the show because he has done some pretty horrific things. He'll be in prison for the next, well, probably the rest of his life. He was convicted of doing horrible things to young people. So we'll leave it there. But what the one cast member I really, really want to point out, actually two cast members I really, really want to point out is, number one, it's where I was introduced to D.B. Sweeney. D.B. Sweeney is a phenomenal actor, and I think even now he should be getting more and more popular. He hasn't picked up the speed that I would have liked to have seen. He's a phenomenal actor. I am going to get into the basic plot of the show so you guys know what it's about, by the way. The second actor that we really, really need to know about this show, we had the main guy who we're not talking about. We had D.B. Sweeney, who was his best friend and present in almost every scene. And then we had the villain, and the villain was motherfudging Terry O'Quinn, who, you know, has the nickname back then of Mr. 1013, because no matter what Chris Carter did, he put Terry O'Quinn in somewhere. Most people my age and millennials are going to know him as John Locke from Lost. Holy macaroni, that was a harsh sneeze in the Harsh Realm. Dun, dun, dun. Anyway, so yeah, John Locke from Lost played General Santiago, which was the bad guy for the TV show, and he did such a fantastic job. All right, so let's jump into the plot. There was actually another point I wanted to make, and now I don't remember as to why this ended up not being as successful as it could have been. I can't remember what it is right now. You guys know I don't use a script. I would love to, but it comes off really, really weird if I use a script. So I apologize for that. So the basic premise of the show is our main character at the very beginning is in the army. His girl is pregnant. They're engaged. They're about to get married. He is leaving the military. His time is up. He's done. And he's called to a secret location by a general and said, the general basically tells him, hey, buddy, we offer this to everyone that is about to leave the U.S. military. We have a video game, and we are going to use it for training simulation purposes. And would you like to try to beat the high score before you leave? And, you know, most guys are going to be like, yeah, I'll try that out. What he didn't know is that the object is to kill General Santiago, which is Terry O'Quinn. When he goes into the Harsh Realm, he finds out that it's a mirror copy of our Earth, and it was designed to be a battle simulator for the U.S. military. But there are tons and tons of people in there, and there's like a ton of differences too, because what has happened is General Santiago has taken over the harsh realm and rules it as a dictatorship. I just remembered what that other point was. So, and then it lost me again. So I'll write it down next time I think about it. Basically, you can't win the game unless you kill General Santiago. I know what it is. Okay, you can't win the game unless you kill General Santiago, but you can't get to him. And here's the thing. He really is a U.S. general who ditched the military, and they don't even know how he's getting into the harsh realm. As a matter of fact, they say they don't know where he plugs in at. They don't know where he's at in the real world. He's stolen this multi-billion-dollar simulation to rule over as his own empire, which is a really cool concept. So the other point why it wasn't so popular, and I think this is by far the most important thing, and I can't believe it slipped my mind. Harsh Realm was not episodic. It's not a reset. So when you finished an episode of this is late 90s, early 2000s, when you finish an episode of the X-Files or Stargate, Star Trek The Next Generation, or Stargate SG-1, when you're done with that episode, when you start the next episode, you're back to the starting point. Everything resets, right? I mean, there's might be small things that carry over, like these two started a relationship last season, and they mention it occasionally, whatever. But for the most part, those shows are very episodic, right? You can watch any standalone episode, and you don't need to know anything else about the show. Harsh Realm was not like that. Harsh Realm, as a matter of fact, uses the storytelling devices. It's not called decompression, but it's inspired by decompression. Decompression is a Japanese storytelling visual form that takes a very long period to talk about a very short period of time incident. And it just opens it up and stretches it out. That's called decompression. This is inspired by decompression. But this is the thing, like when we're watching shows now, like The Haunting of Hill House. That's 8 episodes on Netflix, and this show does not make sense until you get to the 8th episode. So there's things to keep you entertained along the way, but at the same time, there's a lot of stuff that you're not going to understand until the story has hit a certain point, and that's multiple episodes in. So Harsh Realm was trying to do that way back in like 1999, maybe 2001. They were trying. One of the reviews for the show that I remember the most says, "I have no idea what is going on. I just watched the entire first episode, and I watched it a second time, and I'm more confused than when I watched it the first time." Because you don't know anything yet. You just know everything is being set up. So like at the end of the very first episode, you think, man, this guy got really sucked in, and everybody's a virtual avatar of somebody that actually exists in the real world. But then they show him where it started in front of a little screen. They show him in a hospital bed with like all this stuff hooked up to him. And when they pan the camera back, it's a warehouse with about 20,000 people in beds in it, meaning all of these people are inside of the game. And they're all trying to do the same thing. There are real people in this game. The show wouldn't make sense unless you've seen at least 4 or 5 episodes. So for me, getting a hold of this show, I didn't see it in its first run. I never heard of it. Most people didn't, because here's this show, because it started a month after The Matrix and did not immediately catch on. Fox dropped the show the night that, or the day after the 3rd episode aired. They canceled it. As a matter of fact, episode 11, which is the last episode we have of the show, was in the middle of being filmed the day after the 3rd episode aired. And the director had to go on set and tell everyone this is the last episode. we can all quit now or we can finish the episode. And thankfully they did finish it. So for me, I spent many years as a single father with 3 children. We were on a budget, and so we didn't have cable or anything like that. But once a week we would go to Walmart, and we wouldn't buy movies for the DVD player because buying a $25 movie was a waste of money. That's 2 hours worth of entertainment. What we would do is we would buy $30 for a season of a television show. And we could watch that over and over and over again. And I saw Harsh Realm for $11 and I bought it. And I watched it. I loved it. I gave it to my kids. They loved it. So that's how I found it in the bargain bin at Walmart. But like I said, you can watch the whole show on YouTube. I'll make sure to link the description below. It's a fantastic show. I'm really sorry that it didn't do well, and I would love to see a reboot. So, yeah, there's so much I missed here. You guys should definitely check out Harsh Realm. Check out Harsh Realm. Link below in the description. Guys, like and subscribe, and I'll see y'all later. Thank you.